Hey, sixth grade Bible. We are continuing talking about Jesus and his ministry and the different stories that he was a part of, or the stories and lessons that he taught. So, in our lesson today, we are learning about a word called parables. Jesus spoke in parables all the time. And a parable is just a story told in a special way that had a lesson that went along with it. So, he wasn't just telling a story of something that happened, but he's telling a story, not necessarily one that actually even has happened. But the point of it always is that it will teach a lesson. And a lot of the time, Jesus spoke in these parables because people could understand the meaning of the story better, and they could remember that meaning because they remember stories. We're the same way. We love hearing stories, and I bet you can remember some of your favorite stories that you either heard from your parents or grandparents growing up, or maybe ones that they read to you, because we all relate to stories. So Jesus spoke in these parables to try to teach these lessons to people. And in our story today, we have two parables that Jesus teaches. The first one is called the persistent widow. Persistence is something like when a person continues and tries and tries and tries and does not give up. It's maybe like a little kid trying to ride a bike. You have to be persistent. You have to keep trying in order to succeed. A widow was somebody who had lost a spouse. So they lost their husband or wife through death. So in this story, we have a lady. She has lost her husband. She is in debt and she needs to repay it and she can't. So she keeps going to this judge. Now, this judge is not a very kind judge and he's not a very just judge. He doesn't necessarily want to do what is right just because it's right. And she keeps coming to him, begging him over and over and over and over again to help her with her problem and to relieve her of this debt. And the person, the judge, does not do it just because he cares for her or wants to do what's right, but he says, I am just going to grant her what she wants just so she will stop coming to me and won't come back to me another time more upset. She was so persistent that it almost annoyed the judge, so he just wanted to help her for that. And the lesson Jesus was telling through it was not to be annoying, but when you have something that's on your heart, if you're praying for something, whether that be somebody who's sick, maybe with COVID, or maybe you're praying for a family member that they will stop making bad decisions, or whatever it might be, if you're praying to do well on a test, pray and do not give up praying. Be persistent, just like the widow was. Continue to do it until God gives you an answer. Now, remember, God's answers are not always what we want them to be, and they're not always yes, but God will answer our prayers if we continue to be persistent. And we have to be looking for the way he answers them and happy and okay with whatever answer he does give us. But persistence, don't ever give up praying. The second story was called the Pharisee and the tax collector. In this story, Jesus tells about two people. One of them was the Pharisee. Now remember, the Pharisees were also called the teachers of the law, and they're the people who think they know everything. They follow the laws perfectly. They make sure everybody else follow the law, and if they don't, they get them in trouble. The other person is a tax collector. Tax collectors often were not looked at in a good light because they often cheated people because of their money. They would charge them more than what they were supposed to, and then they would keep the leftover money. So tax collectors were not looked at in a very good light. I don't know if you remember the story of Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector, and people looked down on him a lot. So in this parable, Jesus says there was a Pharisee and a tax collector, and they both went to the temple to pray. The Pharisee stood way out in the open so everybody could see him. He spoke really loudly so everybody could hear him. And he prayed and said, "Oh God, thank you that I'm such a good person. Thank you that I don't make a lot of mistakes like that tax collector over there." And he points out the tax collector as he's bragging on himself for being this perfect person. The tax collector, on the other hand, is in the corner of the room. He doesn't want to be seen. He doesn't want to be heard. He's speaking very quietly. And he prays and he says, God, I have messed up. I'm so sorry. Will you please forgive my sins? There's such a difference in the way the two are praying. The tax collector sincerely means it. He's not trying to put on a show. He doesn't need anybody else to hear him, just God. The Pharisee, on the other hand, wants everybody to see how good he is, and he prays out in the open so everyone can see him. And the point of this parable, the lesson Jesus was trying to teach, is that we need to be humble like the tax collector. When you're a humble person, you're not looking to brag about yourself. You're not looking to make others see how good of a person you are. It's not to think too highly of ourselves. The tax collector knew he had done some bad things and he needed to ask forgiveness for it. So Jesus was showing the difference between the two. Don't be like the Pharisee who's very proud of what he's done and brags about it to everybody. Don't be the kid in the class who brags about everything you've done, the good grades you've gotten, the all-star game you had the night before. Be humble. Be appreciative of the gifts that you have. And when you mess up, be willing to ask for forgiveness like the tax collector did. So in both of these parables, Jesus does it for the purpose of teaching a lesson. So you're going to read about those two in the book of Luke, Luke 18. I also will have 2 little videos on my website that will have 1 video for each of these parables. So feel free to go and watch those videos as well. And then you have a couple questions to ask about it. What does it mean to be persistent? What does it mean to be humble? And on the back of the worksheet, you're going to start practicing our new memory verse. You just took a memory verse test last week. This one is from Luke 16, verses 10 through 13. So you're going to look that up. You're going to write it 3 times on the back of the worksheet. I hope you guys have a really great week ahead, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.